Is this on? Make sure everyone can hear me. Hey, great, yeah. Shout out to everyone that moved to the front a little bit. I'm shy, so I wouldn't move to the front if I were you. So thank you. So talking about rhythm, rhythm and words, and when I think about rhythm and words, I think about how everything in life has a rhythm, and how that kind of the rhythm is what wakes us up. The rhythm is what keeps gives us thrills, makes us sad, um, gives us fight. And this particular what I'm going to talk about now, I think is when I think about rhythm and fighting. I'll give you I'll give you a little background of myself, I guess. So I'm Rick Wilson. This mic is so like I'm like talking. Okay, I'm Rick Wilson. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm a touring musician, rapper, singer, or whatever I kind of have to become on stage, panelist. And um, after college, I came back to Chicago, and a friend of mine was killed by a Chicago Police Department officer wrongfully. And was there ever a right reason to kill anyone? Anyway, he was killed by a Chicago Police Department officer or whatever. And me and a bunch of other folks in Chicago that had been doing some political organizing work in the city kind of decided we wanted to come together and have a front for when police brutality would happen to black and brown folks within the city of Chicago. And that organization or coalition kind of formed to become We Charge Genocide. And I was lucky to be one of the selected young people to present a shadow report to the United Nations in 2014 in Geneva, Switzerland, pretty much saying that what was happening between the black and brown folks for the past 40, 50 years in Chicago was violating the convention articles between the U.S. and the UN. And it was a pretty intense trip. And so speaking of rhythm, I think about rhythm, and my kind of role in that was not also to be like an organizer and the communications co-chair for it, but I would be the MC and the host for the political actions and the protests and the direct actions. And I just think about how rhythm has always played a role in political organizing. We can go all the way back to the rhythms that slaves would have on, like when they would enslave Africans would have on boats, all the way jumping forward into the rhythm and songs that enslaved Africans would sing during like working on plantations during slavery. That's kind of what kept them on and kept them running and moving during the day. Moving forward, you think about the civil rights movement, you think about the staple singers and their role in the civil rights movement, and how Dr. King said that he could only make the March on Washington possible because of the singing that was happening and the songs and the rhythms that they were producing. Then you think about songs like Fortunate Son that was happening during the Vietnam War, and the protesting against that. And then you think about BLM and where we are now, and how all of that has kind of came to a point where like we are calling people out for sexual violence. Me Too is an actual thing that has actual power and significance nowadays, in a sense where that never was something that actually that people would take serious. And I just think about how I came here, how I'm here now, and how that lineage of rhythm has led to like me becoming what I do now, like how I kind of carry the torch of that lineage. And I'm just thankful for that rhythm. I'm thankful to be here. So thank you guys.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Hey, nice. Yeah. Any questions again? I like that, yes. Well, I feel actually quite a bit cold here. You know what I usually do when I have workshop with the students? Guess what? I have warming up exercise, rhythmical exercise. Can we warm up together, just like without any introduction, what I do, what I play? Forget about it. Can we like have fun a bit? Do you like, I mean, are you feeling cold or hot? Warm? All right. I mean, while you're sitting, we can just like maybe let's examine, see how the chain works, excuse me, between us without any words. Okay, let's do it in tempo. I have to give you a tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, just like one. Just you have to follow me. You have to follow me. Let's see. You're doing good already. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it sounds as a game, but really, at the same time, it makes us like think about rhythm, how important is silence as well. So this is what, I mean, we did very, very, very basic warming up exercise. But the good thing about it is working as a chain, as a group, as they do in companies and banks. Yeah, I believe so. So it is very important, really, even if we have fun with it, everyone could do it. Everyone, I believe, could minimum clap in tempo. What you did was really nice. I like it, actually. And I like to listen to this kind of sound effect that people create. as we create many things in life. But for me, I mean, rhythm is like everything. So rhythm and melody. I'm lucky that I have two. And I'm very passionate about rhythm. Actually, recently I just got back from Brazil after staying 3.5 months there. I have learned such a beautiful rhythms and beautiful experience watching like 400 people playing percussion. It's one of the best thing you can watch ever. The sound, the feel is unbelievable. I couldn't even sometimes believe like I'm just there watching. Well, I went to the Sambodromo, I watched the carnival for the first time in my life. And it was unbelievable. Just listening for 1 hour and a half, one samba school, walking from the beginning of the Sambodromo to the end, synced properly. Just like watching thousands of people walking with beautiful costumes, but the bateria, about like 400 people playing in the same time and singing, fascinating. I had such a great experience because I've learned something new in my life. Something new about rhythms, about how other people, think of rhythms. I travel a lot, I go everywhere, and always fascinating about new rhythms, about working with or playing with new musicians, from classical to jazz to Latin music to percussion music. So it's a full, what do I call it? Well, kind of passion for me to be there and always. Well, I want to come back actually to Brazil, and this time I'm planning to go to other places than Rio de Janeiro, like to Bahia, Salvador, Recife, the north, of Brazil, to learn something new about rhythms as well. I've heard so much about it, and I guess sometimes we have to take really like positive decisions in life and to stay and go and find out about, especially us as musicians. We need to do this. It's a must to be open-minded, to learn about music in general. And because I think, I don't think, I believe, life is once, so we have to gain the most of it. And I have learned something really beautiful and wonderful, my last experience in Brazil. And here I play. My instrument travels with me everywhere, my baby, the darbuka. I call it my love. How are you, baby? She does talk to me, actually, but you don't hear it, I can hear it. So we have a special relationship together. It has been since I was 4 years old till now. And sometimes in my studio, I look at it, just like, and I think how life interesting as being 4 years old and playing my instrument. I never knew like who I will be, where I will be. After my instrument, it got me everywhere. So I want to say thank you.
We thank it too.
Thank you.
Shall I just go?
I'm done.
Yeah. We're very organized. This is improv. Even the introductions, exactly. So I loved listening to what Rick had to say and what Ronnie had to say. And they did this study of 14-month-old babies and rocking in their mother's or father's arms. And when the baby and the parent were rocking to the same beat, after that period where they were really kind of in sync with each other, if the parent said to that little 14-month-old, go and get the ball across the room, that little kid would just go across the room and get the ball. But if the parent and the child had not been rocking to the same beat, get the ball, the kid was out the room, wasn't going to do a thing. So I just think it's so interesting that we're here looking at all these like big issues, climate change and the internet and everything like that, and maybe it's as simple as tuning our rhythms to each other, you know? And once we get to that place of tuning the rhythms to each other, all things are possible, right? We may be more cooperative. We may go fetch the ball. So the last time I was on this panel, a couple of years ago, flung into it. We don't get much setting. The best I could come up with was the owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea green boat, which is a fine little limerick by Edward Lear. So I decided today that I would redeem myself, and if possible, and do it again, exactly, but better this time. So I'm going to do a speech from Midsummer Night's Dream by Titania. Now, I think this is kind of interesting on many levels because it's a speech that expresses an essential disharmony that is happening between the king and the queen of the fairies. So disharmony is writ large in this, and the impact of disharmony on the world about us. And I've asked Tom and Ronnie to kind of set the scene up by playing some music, but I want us all to imagine, use our wonderful imaginations now in this quite dark space, except for us in the blinding lights, to imagine we're in a magical forest. And if there is enough of an inner child in you there somewhere, you might even begin to shh and sway in your seats a little bit, like trees in the magical forest, and make some tree noises as Tom and Ronnie helps build this magical scene with its inherent disharmony. These are the forgeries of jealousy, and never since the middle summer's spring met we on hill, in dale, forest or mead, by paved fountain or by rushy brook, or in the beached margin of the sea, to dance our ringlets to the whistling wind. But with thy brawls thou hast disturbed our sport. Therefore the winds, piping to us in vain, as in revenge have sucked up from the sea contagious fogs, which falling in the land have every pelting river made so proud they have overborne their continents. The ox has therefore stretched his yoke in vain, the ploughman lost his sweat, and the green corn hath rotted ere his youth attained a beard. The fold stands empty in the drowned field, and crows are fatted with the murrian flock. The 9 men's morris is filled up with mud, and the quaint mazes in the wanton green, for lack of tread, are undistinguishable. The human mortals want their winter cheer. No night is now with hymn or carol blessed. Therefore the moon, the governess of floods, pale in her anger, washes all the air, that rheumatic diseases do abound, and thorough this distemperature we see, the seasons alter. Hoary-headed frosts fall in the fresh lap of the crimson rose, and on old Hyam's thin and icy crown, an odorous chaplet of sweet summer buds is, as in mockery set. The spring, the summer, the childing autumn, angry winter, change their wonted liveries, and the mazed world by their increase now knows not which is which. And this same progeny of evils comes from our debate, from our dissension. We are their parents and original.
Afraid, Charlie? Are you ready? Cool. I think this is a segue now to our CU poets. We're going to do this again with their reading. If you're ready, are you ready? Give me a sign. Okay, cool. I think that was a really incredible statement, Mary, and I wanted to give Charlie just a very brief introduction. I think what I find most moving about Charlie's poetry is its use of multilingualism and really inserting different languages, including Spanish primarily, into his poems in a way that isn't necessarily explained for the reader initially. But I think in a time of disharmony, at least politically, between borders, walls, divides, humans, colors, whatever we want to add into that mix, Charlie's poetry really weaves that together in a way that walks the audience through in a way that has to be patient and has to be moved. So here we go.
This is quite short. Just fix this a little bit. And of course this thing's gonna be swiveling, but hey, can everyone hear me? Loki, I'm not digging this mic, but hey, fuck it. I mean, let's just adjust. No, let's just adjust it. Oh, you tighten it that way. Yeah, the more you know. Gotta love it. All right, then. I'm gonna just go ahead and start. Let's see. Down the rabbit hole. 34,000. The price of admission that is deemed acceptable as an institution to provide the tools to be called an American-made success in today's digital age. 34,000. Being the single worry a Raramuri Coloradan is expected to have, not including juggling 3 to 6 classes con trabajo ni tan solo poder a dormir. Since day one, having the idea smashed into your subconscious that you will only amount to being a delinquent if you don't get into college to get a well-paying job so you can fill a white picket-fenced house on a hill with a family of 2 simply to just die off. From the moment you were born, you already have 2 strikes, your last name and how well you speak Americano. 34,000, the entrance fee to a show where you must wear a mask in order to keep with the norm because you can't simply mess with the cultural blending placed under the false pretense of inclusive diversity. I mean, manifest destiny, the same forced cultural assimilation white settlers abused, washing the so-called grime and dirt that makes you shine como un raspado de lime. 34,000, the price tag that hangs around my neck as I see you try to boast and cry. 11% of our campus is Hispanic/Latino. Quit trying to fluff such low numbers, Becky, just to claim this stolen native ground yours. 34,000, the cost of attendance charged up front without a single mention of how ill-effective it is to be brown, to be me on this supposed hollow ground, where I can still see people try to dress up and act cute by appropriating cultures, and yet nothing is done against them because it all falls neatly like red Trump hats under the fact it's freedom of speech. But when it's the other way around, words like investigation, danger, and even possible expulsion shift through the air hunting for a body like mine to take a bite out of. $34,000 siendo el cobro de una existencia como si fuera una cadena perpetua donde como fiel convicto no puedes levantar ni un solo dígito fuera del lugar sin tener 100 rifles apuntados sobre tu ser. $34,000 is the price of admission to a space where, yes, you will be asked, no, where are you really from? Where yes, you will scare people away. Where yes, your needs will be met, but not before the majority. Because remember, you're a tracked minority. Where you will be taught using primarily white cis idols, while anything that might even look remotely like your face gets set aside to collect dust in a janitor's closet. Where your culture can be minimized to fill the missing percentile of diversity this university takes so much pride in. 34,000. It's a hard number to wrap my head around, as it's sort of like you're paying for the ensuing additional criticisms and looks as you walk from class to class, giving you the sense of feeling out of place and uprooted, both metaphysically and in reality, since the tone of your voice does not match the color of your skin. For 34,000, you get the opportunity to be someone, but if and only if you can put up with the extra mayonesa y sal with your meal. So yes, like the rally cry goes, Sko Buffs.
Ooh.
Thank you so much. And also, just since Charlie is not in the program, make sure to come up afterwards and talk to him. His name is spelled with an X-A-R-L-Y as the first name, and you can follow him on social medias. So just a shout out because he won't be in your app. And then, Tom, do you have anything you want to say? And then we can move to Michael. Perfect. Michael?
Actually, we'll be doing something later together. So just like improvising something. How we can create rhythms. But, I mean, Michael, you're welcome to go. We have plenty of time.
Hello. Hi. You can hear me? Is this on? Yes, it is. As Emily said, I'm a performance maker. I'm not an actor, I'm not a comedian, but I'm interested in improvisation. I'm very interested in improvisation for two reasons. One, because it's a fabulous creative tool. It unlocks creativity, it makes art, if you like. And secondly, because it's a way to open up a dialogue, a communicative tool, a way of talking to each other. Because I think improvisation isn't just about a way to get laughs. I know there are those television programs, those comedians come on and they say they improvise, although I don't believe it. But it's really about listening and empathizing. And as Mary said, tuning into rhythms, tuning into each other's rhythms. It's a very subtle form of communication that's beyond words, I feel. It's a creative tool that invites failure, which interests me as well. It invites failure into the process. And Samuel Beckett once very famously said, fail again, fail better, which is what it's like for any artist making any piece of work, I think, because I think failure is very important in the making of any performance or any piece of art, and I think we must acknowledge that. But actually, there's no such thing as failure in improvisation, because improvisation's about doing it, not thinking about it and planning. So you can't fail, because there was nothing you were going to achieve. You were going to just do it for the sake of doing it and finding out and discovering through doing. This is important. It's also, I think, one of the reasons I love improvisation, it's a celebration of liveness. It's a celebration of the live. In an age, in a mediatized society, in an age where everything's planned and structured and edited, and you know, it's live. It can go wrong. Which is why, I argue, most people go to the theatre in the first place. To see if something will go wrong. To see what will happen. That's why we go. Ultimately, that's why we go. So, in order to test that, I want to do an exercise today, and it could go horribly wrong. It's an exercise I've done before, but it involves action and rhythm and words. So I'm calling it rhythm and words and action. And we're going to enter the unknown. And this is the exercise. I'm going to ask a volunteer from the audience to come up here and sit where I am now and speak into this microphone and tell us a memory that they have. It's got to be a real memory. It could be from any period of their life. It could be a happy memory. It could be traumatic. It could be scary. It could be when they were a tiny child, or it could be 2 years ago. Only 2 rules. It can't be too long, because we haven't got that long. I would say roughly 3 minutes would be fine. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. And for my sake, please don't have too many American references. You'll understand why when I tell you what's going to happen next. So the person will come up here and tell us the memory. What's going to happen then is I am going to be you, whoever that person is. And I'm going to go out there, and we together are going to perform that memory, okay, live. Obviously, we don't know what it is. I've only just set this up about 10 minutes, 15 minutes ago with these people here, and they're going to go for it, so that's great. What's going to happen is that Rick and Mary will add words as I am performing in some way, and we have Tom and Ronnie who will be providing some kind of sound for that. There might be silences, there might be stillnesses, but we are going to try and reenact that memory. And that involves us listening to you and listening to each other and sensing somehow each other. Okay. And remember, there's no such thing as failure in improv. So, can I have a volunteer, please, from the audience? This may also be the first time in CWA history where somebody from the audience has actually come up and sat on the panel. It might not be. Can I have a volunteer?
10, 9.
There's a lady there
8.
in the center of that row. She's put her hand up. She's coming up. She's coming up. Can we give her a round of applause? We'll make sure she can get in.
Hope it's not a sad memory.
Just have this one for you guys. Yeah, perfect. That's great. And we can pull those out as well. Where the card is?
We don't know each other, do we?
No.
I feel like a sort of magician. We don't know each other. It hasn't been set up. Can you tell us your name and tell us the memory? And I will listen, and then we'll do something.
I'm just going to ask if you really speak into that. Okay, is that good? Yeah. Okay, my name.
You have to speak right into the microphone, or people get very upset.
All right. I won't upset you. My name is Vajra. Is that enough? Vajra, yes. And I was just thinking of my earliest memory, which I was never totally clear whether it was part of it was a dream or an actuality, though I think it was an actuality. And let's see, 3 minutes is a long time. So I'll begin with, I was 3 years old, and I was dropped off by my parents at one of my mother's sister's homes, and I remember playing with the cabinets in the kitchen, the bottom ones, because I was only pretty little, and then I was left there. My parents went away, and then it goes to my being in a dark space with a lot of, I was in a crib, and a crib. What do you call a crib? A baby's bed.
British translation.
Oh, okay. I was in a crib I didn't know this then, but because it seemed like the space was dark around me, which made me think maybe it wasn't a reality, but I think it was. And there was a baby in the next crib. Seemed to be in a space with a lot of cribs and babies, little kids, and the baby next to me was crying and crying, and
I was feeling rather like I don't know what I was doing there and why I was alone, but I thought maybe I could cheer this baby up. And so I really tried, and I was not successful. It was a failure. I didn't accomplish that. And I remember feeling quite sad because I felt that much more alone. And then it kind of goes out of focus, and the next thing that happens is eventually, and there seemed to be eventuality about it, days maybe, and my father shows up with an ice cream. So what it turns out, what I found out later, after I understood things, that when I was 3, I had to have my tonsils removed. And my mother and father went to California and left me at my aunt's, and she must have taken me to the hospital. And I woke up after the surgery, and then I was in this room with other babies. And so that's what happened. And I didn't find out until I was in my 40s that actually, I always thought, why didn't my mother come back? How come that happened? And then I found out from a therapist at one point that, wait a minute, you don't quite understand. Nobody gets tonsillectomy until they're healed from the infection that they have. So it was all very intentional.
Thank you. You've got to stay there.
Oh, okay.
Have you got microphones? We're going to do this.
Okay.
How old were you?
3.
3. Good. On you. It's gender fluid.
This is like playback.
Okay.
Where are they taking me? Oh, they are leaving. Oh, oh. I'm always following someone.
Open wide.
Big wide world.
Home.
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 Oh.
Ice cream. That's good.
That's our attempt.
Well done.
That's our attempt. Was it accurate or not?
Well, relatively accurate. I don't think I did, but determine the crib was interesting. It was a lot bigger than what I was in. I do a lot bigger than I was.
Thank you.
It's like an improv unto itself. Perfect. I didn't say this at the beginning, but we might not have time for questions on this panel. Usually this is a performance format. If you have any burning questions, the panelists will be up here after the fact, or just follow them around on Saturday, our first ever Saturday of the Conference on World Affairs. We'll be having panels tomorrow as well. So I think we're going to move into Roni and Tom now, but just so you know that we might have a question and answer session. Write down what your thoughts are, and I'm sure everybody would love to hear afterwards. Thank you.
I mean, I think, well, we have no idea what to play, but just I suggested to Tom that we can create a groove as between the darbuka and the guitar, and we'll see how it goes with it. So this is basically a pattern that we can just create by now, and perhaps we can put melody on it. But for now, this is how sometimes we can compose music, you know. If I have an idea of a rhythm, then I can add my melody to it later on. But just the most important thing is to have this heartbeat groove. So let's go for it, Tom. So this is the way sometimes it goes with rhythm and grooves. We had no idea what to play, but this is how important about impro. As Dave Grusin said once, we were on a panel years ago, and he said, Ronnie, like, and what he said actually, it rang a bell. Never heard someone said this. He said, Ronnie, we were talking about composition. The panel was about composition, and Dave said what Ronnie's, did last night with his solo at the jazz concert, it was a composition. So, and since that time, whenever I do a solo on my instrument, it is actually a composition. It's a journey. So I take the audience, and this is how I explain to students as well. In your solo, you have to take the audience with you, with rhythm, with melody, with ideas, with images. So you have to travel with me in this kind of, it's not illusion or anything, but it is composition. And like what we did now, thank you, Tom, by the way, you're a great player. I love playing with you. I love playing like with musicians who we can create music on the spot, create rhythm on the spot. And it's a challenge. The most important thing about it, it is a challenge. How unexpectedly, like we play something that we had no idea what to play. So Tom created a groove, just played a groove, any groove, and I had to follow. I had to feel that heartbeat, the clock, what I have inside me. And I believe every one of us have this clock, so that it's the heartbeat. And so I enjoyed it, and it keeps me always a challenger. Yeah, thank you.
And as we're playing, like we're kind of connected. It's a weird. We're like one person when you're kind of in that kind of space. Like, and all music. I think the connecting factor of everything is the rhythm of different music from different places. And if you can move to the music or the rhythm of another person or another culture, then you've connected with them on a level that's beyond speech or anything. And one of the things I noticed earlier when we were doing the clapping thing, that there's rhythm in the silence as well. And sometimes we forget that, or I forget that. That in that silence, the rhythm still continues, and you're still connected, and that is still going on. So, anyway.
And this is, sorry, Dom, this is what I was showing you earlier first, guys. You remember? The 1, 2, 3, ta, ta, ta. Yeah? So I had to do this as feeling the silence without any hit. Just counting 1, 2, 3, tak, tak, tak. I remember we were doing something like that. The last 4. So I wanted to try this with you, to examine this with you, how rhythm is important. Talking about the clock. And that's what we did. Silently. It was beautiful, actually, anyway. So, yeah, sorry, Tom. But I like what you said about silence. And silence in music is beautiful. Even in composition, even in rhythm. And many times, personally, in my solos, let me give you an example. And I could hear the silence. And the silence, I use the acoustics of the room. Like,
Easy for you to do.
So I do enjoy the silence. Thank you.
Great, so just to keep our time, we have 9 minutes left of this panel. Improv people, do we have any crazy, zany ideas?
I have go. No, you do crazy ideas. I have a non-crazy idea.
It's not a crazy idea, it's a comment on what Ronnie just said, and it's about just as the importance, he's right, the importance of silence is important, so is stillness in performance. And you know, there's just the presence of someone in the space is exciting to me, just as in music, silence can be as exciting as the notes that are played. There's a similar thing, I think, with movement and music.
You know, one of the things that I had wanted to say that I forgot to say was, you know, I've watched a lot of Shakespeare, both in England and America. And I noticed there's a different style of sort of getting into a Shakespearean play. And in America, the choreography of the plays are amazing. But in English productions, I think character comes through the rhythm of the speech. So Ian McKellen, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's an extraordinary actor. He was most famous perhaps now for Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, but an amazing Shakespearean actor. And he said this is how, when he's working in building a Shakespearean character, he listens to the music of the words, and the music in the language shows him how and who he is on the stage, which I think is really so interesting, because perhaps the way we speak, perhaps the rhythm in which we show up in the world is such a direct expression of who we are. And I think about the way people walk. You know, you walk in New York and people walk a whole different way than when they walk in a different, like I don't, you know, in whatever city or Boulder where people may be more athletic and, you know, but we all have, even in the way we walk, we have this signature rhythm. And oftentimes it comes from the place that we live or we grew up in.
So do any other panelists have any responses to each other on what we saw today? And then I will probably invite up one last CU slam poet after any last thoughts.
We want to hear the poetry.
Poet!
Yes, poetry, poetry.
I think I fixed the mic stand, everybody. Just a little intro too. Okay, for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Hi, everybody. So my name is Mateo. I actually was on the Denver Minor Disturbance Slam Poetry team in Denver. And so now I'm a freshman here at CU studying political science. Yeah, I'm really honored to be here and share some poems with you, or a poem with you all. Yeah, so thank you. Here we go. My mom was 15 years old when she first came to the United States from Mexico, when she first left home. She tells me about how she swam across the river to get here, arms and legs aching with both give and let. Give, give, give. My mom has always been a giver, even when all she wanted to do was just let herself go limp and be swept under the belly of the tide. She tells me about the arms of the river slapping raw and rapid against her skin, trying to swallow her whole. She tells me about the coyote who gathered her destiny into his arms, slung it over his shoulders, and carried her the rest of the way there. Mi ama is the strongest Latina that I know. She is the strongest person that I know. She is the woman who taught my brothers and me what it means to love. And love means finding promise and joy through sacrifice. She has embedded this into my skin, teaching me the legacy of sacrifice in our DNA, braving the adversity of being an illegal, An alien, a prisoner in this purported land of the free. My mom still grapples with that river every single day, dodging ICE in her neighborhoods, that elusive boogeyman haunting the undocumented in this country. She was eventually able to get her papeles. Love means finding promise and joy through sacrifice. My mother speaks the language of her children, whose heritage is slowly slipping away until the R's in our sentences are only a slight stumble on the roof of our mouths and can no longer roll anymore. She untangles the twine of a foreign language around her native tongue, overcoming the anxiety that swells in her chest when her mouth can wrap itself around Spanish, but English sits hesitantly at the bottom of her throat, never to be launched into existence. Love is finding promise and joy through sacrifice. My mother has grit teeth to powder, enduring the abuse of employers who are quick to take advantage of those who struggle to speak the language, who mistake an accent for uneducated and don't understand. An accent just means that you know 2 languages. Love is finding promise and joy through sacrifice. Mi ama has, hold up, my bad, got mixed up. My mother sends home a paycheck, that American dollar lifeline, to our family back in Mexico. She knows it is the difference between food on the table and starving, between clothes in the winter and freezing. Love is finding promise and joy through sacrifice. Mi ama has grappled with el machismo. His cold, bloodshot stares have engraved themselves into the darkest corners of her heart. His abuse has left her body a crime scene. Machismo's spirit lived on through husbands whose rough, calloused hands never learned the give that my mom always gave and only knew take, until there is nothing left. Their hands are still phantom and su piel, like a chalk outline that remains long after the crime has been committed. Love means finding promise and joy through sacrifice. And this is the reality of being an immigrant in the United States of America. It is reliving that migration story, facing that river every single day and living with the fear of drowning. It is sowing the seeds you wish to reap in search of a better life. Mi ama has spent too long sowing seeds for the lands of others, reaping a harvest that is not her own. It is because of this that my brothers and me have vowed to become educated Latino men. Our prosperous future is the fruit of my mother's labor. Love means finding promise and joy through sacrifice. It is about time she reaped her reward now. Thank you all.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists. We also love Minor Disturbance out of Denver, so definitely come up about that. That's a great group that we're really lucky to have in Colorado that educates young slam poets that are just power. So thank you for Deborah for all of the art. Feel free to come up and take a look at what she's been working on. Thank you to Rick Wilson, who joined us just for the panel today. Catch him today. Mary Reynolds Thompson, thank you so much. Keep the claps going, everybody. It's your rhythm. Michael Spencer, thank you for being a 3-year-old baby, something I would have never expected out of this panel. Ronnie Barak, thank you so much. And Tom Rotella, everybody. And just a reminder, thank you so much, but we will also have Jiffer Harriman's sculptures up here. Please come make rhythm with your own body and the sensors of these. They are not tactile, so just by standing in front of them, you should make them notice your presence and make the rhythm. So we'll be here for a couple minutes. There's no time for a rap, and he also isn't able to because then we would have to pay him the non-free that we pay him to be here with us today. Follow him on any place that music is distributed. Rick Wilson with a C, no K.